So Ewan McGregor, the actor who played Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars prequel trilogy, kind of straight up trashed on the prequel trilogy movies recently, and Star Wars fans are not happy about it. I don't really blame you. I myself am a prequel lover. I myself am a prequel defender until the day that I die. To me, the prequels are Star Wars. To me, the prequels are what got me hooked on Star Wars personally. Hayden Christensen as Anakin is my favorite character of all time. But in this video, we're going to break down exactly what Ewan McGregor said in that interview about the prequel trilogy. I'm going to give my personal opinion on it. I'm going to tell you if he was right or wrong in what he said. Let's get into it. As you can see, this article from Collider, and the headline says Ewan McGregor admits frustration with the Star Wars prequels, teases Obi-Wan series. Really, one of the most highly anticipated projects in all of Star Wars right now is the upcoming Obi-Wan series that's being made for Disney+. Definitely, in my opinion, the most anticipated Star Wars series that's coming up on Disney+, no question about it. After years of rumors, Lucasfilm finally confirmed that Ewan McGregor is indeed reprising his role from the Star Wars prequels in a 6-episode continuation that takes place 10 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith, the last time McGregor filled the role of Obi-Wan. Moreover, the show will also find Hayden Christensen reprising his role as Darth Vader, forming a pretty significant bridge from the new era of Lucasfilm to the George Lucas era. I think that's exactly what they're doing. I think that's exactly what they're trying to do with this show. They're trying to bridge the gap between the old and the new fans. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the video as well. Speaking of, McGregor is getting a bit candid about his experience on the Star Wars prequels. When Lucas first announced he was returning to Star Wars realm with 3 prequels, episode 1, 2, and 3 of the Skywalker saga, fans were thrilled, but what fans didn't quite anticipate was how significantly Lucas would push the sequels in terms of changing film technology. In the late 90s, CG technology was quickly becoming the norm, but had not yet been refined enough to give us photoreal creatures or environments. Nothing still had topped the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. And I do want to comment on this, but this is exactly what Ewan McGregor was talking about in his quote, so I'll wait until after I read his quote to comment on it. But Lucas did it anyway. The Phantom Menace was the only prequel shot on film and the one that used the most practical sets. As Lucas moved into Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, he started stripping away more and more of the physical environment in favor of CG sets and backgrounds, much to the consternation of his actor. Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman have been honest over the years about feeling frustrated working with tennis balls and blue backgrounds. I don't really blame them. And then contrasting the experience of the new Obi-Wan series with the prequels in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, McGregor added his voice to the chorus. Now, when I first saw this headline, when I first saw the Collider article about this, I was extremely nervous. I was like, is this going to change my view of Ewan McGregor playing Obi-Wan forever? Is this going to ruin the prequel trilogy for me? Is Ewan about to say something that's going to blow all of our minds? It's going to change our perception of the prequels, but it really doesn't. I can see where he's coming from. I can see where the fans are coming from as well. Let's get into the quote. With each successive and underwhelming prequel release, director George Lucas employed more and more CGI. Now, that part of the quote isn't coming from Ewan. That's coming from the Collider article. You can tell it's being written by a prequel hater, but let's get into the actual quote. Because George Lucas loves technology and loves pushing into that realm, McGregor explains he wanted more and more control over what we see in the background. By Revenge of the Sith, physical sets and backdrops has almost entirely been replaced by blue screen. After 3 or 4 months of that, it just gets really tedious, especially when the scenes are, I don't want to be rude, but it's not Shakespeare. There's not something to dig into in the dialogue that can satisfy you when there's no environment there. It was quite hard to do. I can see where he's coming from. I don't agree with him, but I see as an actor where he's coming from. It would be hard to get into the environment, to get engulfed in this atmosphere that is the Star Wars universe, that is Coruscant. How can you imagine Coruscant without seeing it on screen, without seeing it around you? You can't really do that. I can see where he's coming from as an actor. Acting against a tennis ball, acting across from a tennis ball, surrounded by blue screens, it has to be tough. I think in the case of Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman, they kind of said that because people said their acting was bad. They wanted to make excuses. No one ever really complained about Ewan McGregor's acting, so he never really had a reason to complain about it in the past. He never really had a reason to talk about his struggles on the prequel trilogy, his struggles with filming and acting during the prequel trilogy, his struggles with acting in front of blue screens, and his struggles with acting in front of tennis balls. He never had a reason to talk about that stuff. But now he does have a reason. He's trying to hype up his new show. What's the only difference between the prequel trilogy Obi-Wan and this new show? It's really just the technology that we've had. And really, we're getting this technology because of George Lucas. Let's be real. As a fan of Star Wars, as a fan of George Lucas, this statement does kind of make me mad, because the prequel trilogy, yes, the technology wasn't there to do exactly what George Lucas wanted to do. So he created that technology. The reason why film is where it is today, the reason why the entertainment industry is where it is today, is because of George Lucas. No one else had the balls. No one else had the vision that George Lucas had, push the technology forward like he did. And yes, it would be pretty tough for the actors. It's probably pretty tough for George Lucas to see his vision when it's only blue screens and when it's only tennis balls. It's probably really tough for the director, the writer, but it's definitely tough for the actors to get into the mood, to get into the atmosphere, to understand what's going on around them without actually seeing. With all of that being said, I am on the side of George Lucas. I'm still going to defend the prequels till the day I die. I understand where Ewan is coming from, but as a fan, as a George Lucas fan, as a Star Wars fan, and definitely as a prequel fan, I think that the CGI, for one, isn't that bad, especially for the time that it was. Revenge of the Sith CGI isn't even bad for today's CGI. Compared to some movies that was made in 2010, 2012, CGI in Revenge of the Sith holds up. Now, episode 1 and 2, the CGI isn't that great, but I think they can remaster it one day and make it look pretty damn good. I think that the way the prequels advance the technology of film, the way the prequels actually look as movies without that atmosphere, without that environment, the prequels are not what they are today. Like I said, the prequels are my Star Wars. The prequel is what got me hooked on Star Wars. Hayden Christensen as Anakin is my favorite character. If he wasn't there, I wouldn't love Star Wars the way I love it today. That's just the bottom line. Without that atmosphere, without that environment that the prequels created, without that environment that the blue screens created, the technology that George Lucas came up with to create that environment, to create that atmosphere, we don't have the prequel trilogy that we have today. We don't have the prequel trilogy that we love. We don't have those moments that we love. The Anakin, Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, Anakin versus Obi-Wan fight, Anakin versus Obi-Wan dialogue. We don't get that moment without the atmosphere that's created around them. Yes, that would be cool. Yes, that fight scene would be cool. That dialogue scene would be cool in a random room, in a random hallway, because of how greatly it was crafted. You don't need the environment to make it cool, but what makes it great is the fact that all of that's happening while there's a volcano planet erupting around them. They're on a volcano planet that's created with blue screen, with the technology that George Lucas created for the prequel trilogy. We don't get those moments without the technology. We don't get those moments without George Lucas's vision. We don't get those moments without the stuff that Ewan McGregor is complaining about in this interview. That's all because of George Lucas, all because of that technology, all because of the tennis balls and blue screens that you're complaining about. So while I understand that it has to be tough for Ewan McGregor to act in front of that stuff, the movies, the final creation, the final product is great because of that stuff, in my opinion. You can let me know in the comments what you think about the prequel trilogy. If you agree with me, if you totally disagree with me, that's all fine. Just let me know in the comments. We can talk about it. But let's look at the second part of this quote where he's talking about the new Obi-Wan show versus the prequel trilogy. He says that won't be a problem on the set of Obi-Wan Kenobi, whereas pioneered by creator Jon Favreau on The Mandalorian in a process called stagecraft, they project the virtual backgrounds onto this massive LED screen. So if you're in a desert, you're standing in the middle of a desert. If you're in the snow, you're surrounded by snow. And if you're in a cockpit of a starfighter, you're in space. It's going to feel so much more real. Yes, it might feel more real for the actors, and I bet that gives you such a better performance than acting in front of a blue screen. Like I said, I understand where he's coming from, but I don't think it's going to make much of a difference for us, for the viewer, for the finished product. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about Ewan McGregor's comments on the prequel trilogy. And also let me know what you think about the prequel trilogy as a whole in the comments. If you want to support the channel, check out all the new merch that I just dropped. The link to that will be in the description. Also, if you did like the video, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to follow me on Twitter or join the Discord, both of those links will be in the description as well. But thank you for watching the video and hope to see you in the next one.